Welcome to the final video in the series. In this, we will look at my top 10 tips for ensuring great appraisal conversations and look at how do you ensure that the feedback and its impact don't end when the conversation does. Let's dive in. These are a bunch of things that I've done wrong slash I've realized to do, right? First thing would be to prioritize your feedback. Especially when I was around 25, I would go in with like 7 pieces of positives and development areas. That is just impossible for someone to track or remember or act on afterwards, right? So hard prioritize your feedback and pick maximum 3 things. So max, if you're like two mid managers, I would give 4 things at max that they need to do differently. Like that would be your next step. But synthesize, try to bring it down or deprioritize so that you're clear. And the closer you are to the heart of it, the sharper it will be. And honestly, after a while, it doesn't become 7 things. You kind of know what matters and what you can let go, right? And the second thing, and this is to what Ajit said, I want to emphasize this thing. Please make sure that they remember their strengths also. I have seen so many times that when I'm talking, when I'm saying the strengths, they're listening. The moment I get to development areas, when they take their pen out and they start writing. And I'll be like, no, write this down, right? And I emphasize how important it is for you to focus on your strengths because someone told me this and it made so much sense that after, when you hit mid career, you actually stop working on development areas and you just orient to roles where you can double down on your strengths in some sense. Like you still work on it, but you never like I'm never gonna be your person to call when you need to make a very complex Excel sheet. Right? I can still do it. I am passable on 5 things and I'm great at 3 things. And I will find a role and a job that links well with my strengths. Right. So it's important that they recognize it. And the sharper and clearer and better you are at your own strengths, it will help. Right. Um, Third is, and this is super important, focus on the behavior, not the person. It is not you are sloppy. It is your work is sloppy. Right. Do not call judgments on the person. And you know this, but I just have to emphasize this. And finally, this also, which is focus on the changeables, not the unchangeables. And fifth one, you know this, no surprises, right? This is on what you share. When you choose those 3 things and when you are engaging, when you think about how you share, I think it's important to be honest, where I many times tell people, I'm not sure about this feedback. We will talk again about this in 3 months. But here's like directional, directionally, there's something about your Excels that I need to figure out. I don't know yet, but let's talk, right? And what is super powerful is for them to realize that they're not alone in this. To tell the times that you have messed up, to share the stories where, Ajit gave me this feedback and I thought I was the worst person in the world and I left my first feedback conversation crying. I'm hoping that today that doesn't happen because it took me some time to realize that he didn't mean it badly. He just blah, 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 right? So start off from the first, tell them that you've been in their shoes and uh, you know what they're going through. The more you talk about you as a receiver or you as a growing character, the more relatable you are rather than a voice of God speaking and telling them 5 feedback things that they need to change. Second, and this what we spoke about sending feedback earlier versus not, I think it's important that people are unique. So again, you can't make them into you. Don't try to do that, right? Um, so wherever you feel like you might be doing that, flag that also. I mean, for example, 1 plus 2, I share things that I do, but I don't tell them to necessarily do it. So for example, I say, I find it hard to cut off after work. So what I've started doing is I just turn off my phone for 5 seconds, and that's more than enough because that mentally snaps me out of it. I don't know if it will work for you, but I just thought I'd share. Find some way for you to cut off from work. So you give them that space to do it in their own way while giving them inspiration with how you do it, but making sure that they do it in some way. That's kind of like the picture there. What we spoke about saying, do never give them bad news upfront. It has to be the conclusion, the irrefutable conclusion of a series of logical steps than your judgment upfront without any backing. Because they're not going to be listening after that. But of course, don't also delay. Don't make it so long drawn out that you don't get to it because that anxiety will keep going up. And coming back, don't forget your intention that you set. Why are you doing this in the first place? Right? What is it that is your anchor? For me, it is knowing that feedback is the kindest thing that you can do for someone. After hearing from those people, I wish you told me earlier, I bite the bullet as soon as I can. And upfront ask them, would you like structured feedback or on the fly feedback? There are people who say that I want structured feedback. That means that I set up 20 minutes and talk to them about it. Do not tell them right after something happened, right? Because they need to get themselves into a mind frame to listen to you. And to close, one last thing that helps is engaging on the long view. Don't engage on here and now. It's not about today. But remind them that, look, and I've heard this so many times, it's frustrating, but it's helpful, which is that if you're not giving somebody a promotion, say, right? But telling that, look, we really believe in you and we want to set you up for success, right? And so, like, we are huge, we are cheerleading you. We really want you to be successful at UNI. That is why I'm telling you this. That's why I think just one more cycle of preparing yourself and working on these three things, I think will get you ready for manager. So I think it's important to also remind that this is not a here and now thing. Take the longer term view. And finally, I just want to assure you that you will make mistakes. Like, unlike this little chick, which is like, I don't want to start, I don't want to practice, I want to skip ahead to the part where I'm awesome. I think it's important to realize that it will take practice. It will take few repetitions for you to eventually become comfortable and good at feedback. So don't be super hard on yourself, but like follow process and try to get it to a good place. And finally, this is just in case things go south, in case you haven't had a chance to complete the conversation or had to release your agenda. Remember to also, in your next steps, ensure that you get to closure. If you give them somebody hard feedback, they cried. Remember 2 days later or next day or whenever to check and say, hey, how are you feeling? Right? And don't shy away from it. Right? Check in on them, make sure that you help them get to closure. Do you want to talk again? Or flag to Ajit, Satish that they need to intervene. Do whatever you need to, but like don't forget that conversation done, I move on and do work. People are carrying emotions after that. In case there's anything specific to check, and in case you want feedback for yourself, which you never got to in that chat, but you know that you didn't do something right and they told you and you accept it. Like, I actually want to understand that deeper. I'll talk to you in our next check-in, but I want you to give me feedback so I can be a better manager. Or if you want to check back in on something, set that calendar invite to continue that. That's it. And we get into that's it from now. Like, this was the full story arc, which is for prepare for the meeting, 4 things to make sure that you do, that everyone is prepared, there are no surprises. Getting into the meeting, setting it up, getting into the detail, sharing them relevant feedback and closing it, and then moving to follow up. That would be the tactical flow that I would say, and that was all I had to share. Yay.
Congratulations! You have made it through the full series, from preparing for the conversation, running the conversations well, and ensuring closure and next steps. Now that you have the full approach, what was your biggest insight or takeaway from this series of conversations? I would love to know your insights in the comment section, and I will hope to see you again in another video.